What's going on, Detroit Lions fans? Wednesday edition of Detroit Den 313 with Steve. I'm going to get with Will later this afternoon, hopefully, maybe tomorrow, get our game day episode out. But today's topic, you see the thumbnail, you see the title. We're going to be talking about Brad Holmes. Okay. I have a question. What I like to do is I love engagement. I love when you guys leave comments. I've had some banger episodes coming from people who follow us in your comments, and you guys leaving me little things to look into. You give me some homework assignments. I study up on it. I like to do a little research, and I do some episodes about it. I think one of my favorite episodes was diving into some players from the Detroit Lions this past preseason and talking about some of their backgrounds and stories and where they've come from, things they've overcome. So leave some comments. We're going to talk about Brad Holmes. Did he do enough for the Detroit Lions to win that Super Bowl? All right. And I see the odds. I see stuff on TikTok and Twitter and the Za'Darius Smith trade and how it helped our odds to win the Super Bowl. I already talked about Za'Darius Smith quite a bit, but he's still the topic of discussion. He's still going to be what a lot of people and what a lot of Lions fans want to hear about. If you're not very familiar, if you come here for your information, I try to feed you the best information I can. I love the trade, a 5th and a 6th round pick in the future, and we get back a 7th. Za'Darius Smith himself does not replace Aidan Hutchinson's production. I'm pretty firm on that. So a lot of people, myself included, we wanted just one more little piece. We wanted the Azeez Ojulari. We wanted the Arden Key, the Harold Landry. There were some reports out there of Carl Granderson. I keep wanting to say Curtis Granderson, the center fielder for the Detroit Tigers back in the day. But Carl Granderson from the New Orleans Saints had some ties. Brad Holmes coming from there, or Dan Campbell coming from there. Aaron Glenn didn't happen. So the only move that the Detroit Lions made was the trade for the Za'Darius Smith. Was it enough? Listen, it's hard for me to question Brad Holmes as a GM. You can't question Brad Holmes. Okay. And I'm not saying you can't. You have your right. That's your opinion if you don't think that he made the right moves. But I'm just going to throw some facts at you guys. Brad Holmes is a top 5 GM in this league. Okay. I personally would probably say he's the number 1 GM in football. Okay. And maybe that's a little too much home cooking, but if you look at what he's done in the draft, if you look at what he's done with bringing in some big time free agents, he's just hit home runs everywhere he's gone with the Lions. Every move he's made has not been sexy. It hasn't been perfect, but he's hit on more than enough to turn this team into Super Bowl contenders. If you would have told me that in year 4 of this rebuild 4 years ago is the term we were using, we'd be talking about a 7-1 football team, chance to go to the Super Bowl, the NFC running through Detroit right now as it sits. I would have called you a fool. I would have said, man, there's no way. 4 years ago, we were probably in a mindset of, man, there's no way. We're hiring Dan Campbell, a guy who's never coached before, an assistant GM, a director of college scouting from the Rams. Like, this isn't going to work. Here we are, different world we're living in than where we were 4 years ago. Okay. It's okay if you have questions, but we got to give Brad Holmes the credit he deserves. I think that we really handled in the stretch that we've had these last 3 weeks without Aidan Hutchinson. I was deeply concerned that, man, our defense, I don't know, do we have enough? Aaron Glenn, like, yeah, I love him as a coach. I think he's done phenomenal, but man, a team can't overcome losing 4 or 5 pass rushers. Can they? They have. All right. And it hasn't looked sexy. If you're like me and you like watching people get after the quarterback on game days, that's been kind of missing the last 3 weeks. But you can't deny the fact that our defense is still top 10 in points per game and how much points we're giving up, because that's the only stat that matters. People are talking about yards and, oh, we're at the bottom of the league in passing yards given up, and our run game defense has slipped up a bit. It doesn't matter. Points per game is all that matters. How many points is our defense giving up versus how many points our offense is getting is the only stat that matters to me. It's the scoreboard at the end of the game. Okay, all those other stats, that's for fantasy footballers and people who make prop bets on FanDuel and ESPN bet. Stats don't matter to me. I don't care if Jordan Love would have went out and threw for 400 yards last week and a touchdown. How many points did they put up? 14. You only put up 14 points. I trust the Detroit Lions offense, who's getting Jameson Williams back, by the way, who's also a player we've won games without. We're just getting another toy to play with here. Another guy who can stretch the offense and put pressure and stress out defenses. We're getting scary good. We're playing very, very good complementary football. We just watched our special teams unit absolutely destroy the Tennessee Titans and single-handedly pretty much win that game. Can you question Brad Holmes? Yes, you can. I can't question our coaching staff and how well we've done. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson stepping up through all these injuries and saying, we're still going to go out and play Detroit Lions football. Next man up. Doesn't matter if you're coming from the practice squad, if we pick you up from another team's practice squad, we have complementary football players on every single level of this team. Okay, so yes, I think that the Detroit Lions could have came closer to replacing that Aidan Hutchinson production by adding an Azeez Ojulari and a Za'Darius Smith. Brad Holmes saw it different. He just said, I don't know what the trade offer was for anyone else, but seeing that the Browns wanted a 4th-round pick for Za'Darius and we gave up a 5th and a future 6th and got a draft pick in return, I think that's a fair deal for the Cleveland Browns. This is a guy we're getting that is going to be paired up with Aidan Hutchinson next year. So for everyone who's going into the draft in 2025 saying we need a pass rusher, if you look at what we're paying Za'Darius Smith, it's cheaper than the contract that was given to Marcus Davenport. Okay, so we gave up a 5th rounder for next year, and we got a guy who pressures the quarterback just as much as our number 2 defensive end. Now, my only question was Za'Darius Smith, and I don't like to overreact. I'm not trying to put stress into the world, but he's coming from the Cleveland Browns where he wasn't the guy. Okay, Myles Garrett's the guy on that defense. You come to Detroit, your role's bigger. Is that going to play is that going to play a role where he's switching, going from being Robin to now he's got to come here and be Batman when it comes to being a pass rusher? Because a lot of eyes are on Myles Garrett on an offensive line when you're going against the Cleveland Browns. Now you're coming to Detroit. All eyes when it comes to a pass rush is going to be on you, Za'Darius Smith. So I'm going to be paying attention to how big of a role that plays. But for this season anyway, next year, it's all eyes on Hutch. And I think Za'Darius Smith just falls right back into that role he was with the Cleveland Browns. He doesn't have to be the guy. He just has to be a guy. But for the next however many games we have left this season, Za'Darius Smith has to be the big dog, okay? Him, Ali McNeil, I really do think that Josh Paschal coming back will help quite a bit. We need to get JP healthy. He's been out the last couple games. I think he can play that good Robin role. But I do have a question about that, where Za'Darius Smith was with his role with the Browns is drastically different with the Detroit Lions. But keeping this to Brad Holmes, man, I was doing some thinking the other day. Where Brad Holmes absolutely is a nuclear weapon is in the NFL draft. Okay. So this team, like I've been saying this whole episode, is set up so nicely. I did some research. I looked at some of the past drafts. If you were to draft the player, if you were to have a redraft, we'll call it, I'm looking and I want your guys' opinion on this. How many 1st-round picks would we have if we redrafted? Let's just start in the 2021 draft. The 1st-round pick we had there, Penei Sewell. Obviously, he'd still be a 1st-round pick in 2021. Possibly Aleem McNeil, who we drafted later that year, and St. Brown. I think those are potentially 3 1st-round picks right there, 3 1st-round talents. If you want to move to 2022, Aidan Hutchinson, obviously going to be a 1st-round pick. Jameson Williams, I think he kind of has a little bit of room to – maybe he's not a 1st-round pick anymore, but the talent in that year was there. There's still plenty of time for him to change that narrative. But also, Kirby Joseph, I think he would have been drafted in the 1st round. Let's move to last year, 2023. Obviously, we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. He'd be drafted in the 1st round. Jack Campbell, maybe a fringe 1st-rounder, maybe. But also, Brian Branch, 1st-round pick. Sam Laporta, the production he put up as a rookie would probably be a 1st-round pick if teams could go back in time. So we're looking at, what do we got? Campbell or Gibbs, Laporta, Branch, Hutch, Kirby, Penei, Aleem, St. Brown. We're looking at least 8 guys that with 1st-round talent, 1st-round production from Brad Holmes. Okay, so when it comes to the trade, we got to factor in every move that he's made. I feel like we can't just say, oh, he might have missed. We haven't even had a game with Za'Darius Smith yet. So the question, you guys see it on the title, did Brad Holmes do enough for the Detroit Lions to win a Super Bowl? I think my answer, final decision, yes. When I look at this team, I can see a future where we head to New Orleans in a couple months. I can see a future where Lions fans are partying on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, and we're celebrating. Okay. When I watched the Kansas City Chiefs the other night, I was watching them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They don't scare me. Okay. Yes, they have Patrick Mahomes. Yes, they got DeAndre Hopkins, who's still 32 years old or whatever he is. He's not the same DeAndre Hopkins, but he does have a much better quarterback. Yes, they still have Travis Kelce. They don't have much of a run game. They play good defense, but they've never seen a team like the Detroit Lions who can run the ball, throw the ball, play good defense. They haven't had a team that's really tested them. When I'm looking at the future, and I know this is just way too early scouting, I guess, there's not a team that scares me anymore. There's not a team where I say Sunday morning, man, I don't know if we're going to get this win. That's why I've been so hard on these other mainstream media guys. We're picking the Packers to win, and Jared Goff can't play outdoors. I don't know what else this team has to do to buy your guys' trust. Brad Holmes is the best GM in football. Dan Campbell should be talked about more as coach of the year for what he's doing. I know that coach of the year is kind of exceeding expectations. We're 7-1 and really should be 8-0, but that's the way it is. We have the best GM, the best head coach, the best offensive line, the best running back duo, one of the two hottest coordinators in football, and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. What more do we need? For me, it's just kind of steadying the ship, just kind of keeping and maintaining this course, maintaining your discipline, not just saying, hey, we're the Detroit Lions. All we got to do is show up and play football. You still got to play the game. I'm a firm believer in the term any given Sunday. You never know what's going to happen. But this Detroit Lions team is different than anything we've seen in my lifetime, probably your lifetime, depending on how long you've been watching. We've never seen a team this good, guys. Did Brad Holmes do enough for the Detroit Lions to win a Super Bowl? Leave it in the comments. Stick around. Hit that like button. I'll be back later with another show, guys. Thanks for watching.